Why is multi-tenant disaster recovery complex? Have you ever wondered why disaster recovery in multi-tenant environments can be so tricky? Let's break it down in a way that makes sense. Multi-tenant architecture means that multiple customers share the same software application and its resources. This setup is efficient but adds layers of complexity when it comes to disaster recovery. First, let's talk about data segregation and isolation. In a multi-tenant system, tenant data often lives in shared databases. When disaster strikes, recovering data for one tenant without affecting others is a challenge. It requires careful tagging or partitioning of data during both backup and restoration. The more shared the infrastructure is, the harder it is to keep tenant data separate during recovery. Next, the type of database partitioning model used can greatly impact recovery efforts. In silo models, where each tenant has its own database, recovery is simpler. You can restore one tenant's database without touching anyone else's. However, in pooled or hybrid models, where databases are shared, advanced techniques are needed to extract and restore specific tenant data without disrupting the entire system. Then, there's the issue of tooling and operational overhead. Standard backup tools typically work at the database or instance level, which is not enough for tenant-level recovery in pooled environments. This means specialized tools or custom scripts are often necessary to separate tenant data during backup and recovery, adding more complexity to the process. Security and compliance are also major concerns. Disaster recovery must ensure data confidentiality and integrity. If not managed carefully, recovery processes can risk data leakage or unauthorized access between tenants. This is especially important in multi-tenant environments where different tenants may have varying compliance requirements. Shared infrastructure dependencies can complicate matters further. Since tenants share components, a failure or recovery action affecting one part of the system can impact multiple tenants. Coordinating recovery efforts to minimize downtime and data loss while addressing individual tenant needs requires detailed planning and testing. Lastly, customization and tenant variability add another layer of complexity. Each tenant may have different configurations or customizations, so disaster recovery must account for restoring these unique settings along with the data. From a practical standpoint, software-as-a-service providers often prefer pooled models for cost efficiency. However, they must invest in sophisticated disaster recovery strategies. This includes designing backups that logically tag or partition tenant data, using recovery methods that segregate tenant data during restoration, and implementing role-based access controls and encryption to secure data during recovery. Regularly testing recovery plans is also essential to ensure that tenant isolation and compliance requirements are met. In summary, multi-tenant disaster recovery is complex because it requires balancing the efficiency of shared resources with the need for strict tenant data isolation, security, and compliance. SaaS providers must adopt tailored backup and recovery processes that address these challenges to ensure reliable and secure recovery for each tenant independently.